I want to give younger you and younger me like a hug. I'm like, dang. Hi, I'm Alex.
And I'm Faiven.
And welcome to Let's Talk About It.
If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and like this video. Also, we want to hear from you, so comment below during the video.
Today we are talking about when the unexpected happens. How do you handle that moment when you realize things are going completely outside of the plans that you had?
Curveballs. Let's talk about it. But first, rapid fire.
Finish this sentence. When life gives you lemons.
Make lemonade.
I thought you were going to come up with something original and on your own, but sure.
Nah, it makes a lot of sense. Roll with the punches.
Okay.
Is your auto response to shock fight, flight, or freeze?
Freeze, unfortunately.
Me too.
Have you experienced more curveballs as a creative or as someone working in corporate?
As a creative, for sure. The whole industry is a curveball. I'm proud of myself for handling blank with grace.
Disappointment from some of my closest relationships. Share the last time you handled a situation with grace. We have the same question.
Never. Nuck if you buck.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Do you think time heals all wounds?
Time doesn't heal all wounds, but it minimizes the pain. The greatest plot twist of your life so far has been?
It has to be my current career, that I didn't follow the path that was set out for me by my parents.
Okay.
The most audacious thing a friend has ever done to me was blank.
Rob me. How do you feel when your plans get ruined or canceled?
Ruined? I'd probably be sad. Canceled? Overjoyed. It's JOMO now, not FOMO. Joy of missing out.
Oh, is that a thing?
Yep.
Wow.
If you saw a group of black people suddenly start running, what would you do?
Run, I ain't a fool now. Ask questions later, run.
That's the only correct answer.
I think for me, the biggest curveball happened before I even set foot into my young adulthood journey. Before I even went to college and all that, I was struggling with undiagnosed anxiety and depression. And so immediately it kind of derailed my plans. Prior to that, like, I was all over the place. If you would have asked me what I was going to be, college was peppered in, but I also kind of wanted to secretly get discovered. I wanted to be on America's Next Top Model, a Victoria's Secret angel. I wanted to have 4 kids. I didn't have a timeline carved out, but the biggest thing is that none of that happened because I first had to tackle my mental health.
You know that's crazy. I didn't know you was gonna say that. I assumed your curveball would be, girl, you got pregnant when you were 19.
You know, that's part of it too. That's part of it too.
Yeah, you a whole teen mom. You're like, yeah, my mental health.
Because prior to having my daughter, there was depression and anxiety. So I was in high school, I was running track, and every time before my event, I would pass out. And they were testing me. They were doing EKGs and EEGs, and they were like, no, she doesn't have a heart condition. Nothing's wrong with her brain. Nothing's coming up here. I'm like hyperventilating, and nobody goes, does the child have anxiety, perhaps? Performance anxiety or anything like that? I got accepted into the colleges that, I applied for, but we lived in Germany. And I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because, there were other siblings. I don't know what our financial situation was at the time, but my parents didn't take us on college tours. So when I got accepted, I was just kind of expected to then go to that campus and figure it out. And as somebody that was already dealing with anxiety, the thought of that crippled me, and I got into some self-sabotaging behaviors. So yeah, when I became a mother young too, I had that responsibility on top of now this pre-existing anxiety and depression, but not knowing that that's what I was going through, feeling like a failure, feeling like I disappointed people by not living up to their expectations, for me meant that out the gate, my path kind of veered off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I do realize that back then, they never really talked about mental health. So they're like, if you can't see it, it's not a thing.
Yep.
They're just like, oh, you're lazy. It's like, or depressed. No, you're lazy. I said what I said, like Sorry, speaking from experience. But yeah, no, that's a tough first thing to deal with. When did you realize that was an issue?
I think after I had my daughter, my sister had picked up on it because she was a mother as well, my older sister, and she thought that I had postpartum depression, which kind of opened up my world to that D word in particular. I'm like, postpartum depression, like, wait, this isn't normal because I haven't just been feeling like this after the baby. Like, this predates, a lot of things. And that was kind of like my first introduction to Nah Girl. Like, everybody doesn't feel like this. Yeah.
I kind of had a similar situation in college because, like, my parents tried to put me on a path, bless them, that was like stable. So they're like, okay, you're gonna be a pharmacist or you're gonna be an engineer or something like that. But I'm like, I don't like math and I don't like science, so why am I gonna do that? Like, I always ask those types of questions. Like, I got straight A's in Spanish, but I wasn't gonna go study something about Spain or just the language of Spanish. I got great grades in English and I excelled in performance, but my parents were like, that's cute, but we're gonna give you something that's real. And they wouldn't like co-sign on loans or anything I needed to go to college if it wasn't gonna be something that had a guaranteed yield at the end. So I went ahead and went to college at 17, mind you, because I'm the youngest in the class with a late birthday. And I was honors program because of my good grades, and then I was pre-pharmacy. And it was just, so imagine already being like unhappy in what you're studying and then honors on top of that, meaning you have to write a whole extra paper at the end. I'm like, this is extra work and in subjects I don't like. And I, to this day, won't know if it was just situational sadness or if it was depression. But I've never told this story, actually. I ended up leaving school during the first semester. I was smart enough to know, instead of just dropping out or failing out, if you withdraw, like, so it says W instead of failing or anything, then you don't impact your GPA. So I wasn't going to class because I'm assuming it was depression. It was just so long ago and it wasn't diagnosed, so I don't know. But I wasn't going to class. I was super sad. I didn't like the situation. I didn't like anything on campus. And so I stopped going to class. And then my parents found out I wasn't going to class. So they're like, okay, you need to leave school. We'll figure this out at home. Maybe you'll just get a job and we'll regroup. But this only happened because I may or may not have... Okay, I wouldn't say it was an attempt.
Girl, spill.
I took a handful of ibuprofen.
Faiven!
I know. And I threw up in the dining hall and then kind of passed out. And they had like called the medics and everything. And they pumped my stomach.
Wow.
And since they were like, oh, this is an attempt, they had to put me in the hospital. They had to keep me overnight for observation. They're like, and then the psychologist or whatever has to come in or whatever. And then he talked to me, and then he talked to my dad, and he was like, oh yeah, she's not, I don't know if I could say it on YouTube. Like, she's not a danger to herself. This seems very situational. It's like a cry for help or attention or whatever, blah blah blah. And that's how I ended up leaving school.
Wow.
Freshman year.
Yeah. I never knew that.
Yeah, I didn't tell anyone. And my sister didn't even know until 10 years later. Because my parents don't share things amongst, especially negative things. And we're all different and in different parts of our life at that point. So I went back home, did nothing for a couple months. Again, I was 17, probably 18 at this time. And they're like, well, what do you want to do? Like, they're just, my parents were just so, okay, well, we need to get the ball rolling on your life. And I'm like, I don't know, everything I want to do.
Still recovering.
Yeah, and you shoot it down. Like, you can't do anything that you're interested in. Why you sad?
Oh my goodness.
I know, it was pretty bad. So what they were like, they said, okay, if you don't know what you want to do with your life, I get it, but you can't just do nothing. So at least get a job, go to work. So I got like retail jobs and whatever, and I even got two. I got like merchandising early at the morning at Macy's at 6 a.m. till 10, and then this restaurant called Bertucci's on the main road in our town. I went there for 10:30, and I was the hostess, and I would see people there, and then I was just working. So I was just working. I got in the groove. I got back to normal, and then my mom was like, "Okay, how about you take the rest of your electives at the local community college, and we'll see how you do there. If it's like really a school thing that you hate school or whatever." It wasn't that I hated school. It was just I don't know. I just wasn't happy with the path they put me on.
Right.
So I went to a local community college in New Haven, and I got straight A's. And then I went back to the UConn handbook to see like, okay, what do I need for a marketing degree? So then
marketing was your decision?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they had me in pre-pharmacy, school pharmacy. I didn't want to do all this science and chem and whatever. So I was like, marketing was the closest thing to fun, because it was like, oh, there's like, advertising and creativity or whatever, but it was still a real job in the school business. So I looked at what I needed. I took all the equivalents at the community college for the, what are they called? The prerequisites or whatever. And I took them all at community college for cheap. And so I had no debt at this point. And then transferred them maybe like a year later after doing this process of just like working, taking the classes, working, taking the classes, and not like socializing, not dating, not doing all those things, but like kind of like under like the eagle eye of my parents too. And then finally I matriculated back into UConn, and because I was younger than everyone anyway, I still graduated with my class even with that. So that was a curveball.
Wow.
Yeah.
It is so wild to me how just conversations around mental health were non-existent back then, and I feel like that stereotype is true. Like when you have parents that aren't from here, like the push to be something, to excel is like even harder. They're like, pursuing something you're passionate about, like get out of here, that's a privilege, can't relate, So yeah, I'm very grateful that, our generation now and our kids won't have to go through those situations, because at least now we at least have the language to go, hey, it's like something isn't right here. Everybody doesn't necessarily know what they want to do. Everybody doesn't have this 4-year plan. Some people have to take a year off to work first, and that's okay. I want to give younger you and younger me like a hug. I'm like, dang.
Yeah, and then you're so young, and your frontal lobe isn't fully developed, and you're just so sad, and you're just like, and it just feels hopeless.
That is such a terrible and isolating feeling, because you don't know how long it's gonna last, and you just don't see a way out. And I think that is when some people go even deeper down the rabbit hole if they don't have the proper support systems around them, because in the darkness, in that isolation, is when those thoughts really kind of like take over, and then you believe them. You believe those negative things about yourself now,
Absolutely.
Oy.
I know. So that was my first like major life curveball, like interrupted college, interrupted just life. Like what am I doing with my life? But I made it out, and what I learned from this was, girl, as long as you're young and first of all, resiliency is a thing.
Yeah.
But as long as you're young and you're under the thumb of someone else, not that my parents were oppressors or anything, but it was like their house, their rules type thing. Mind your business and bide your time. I'm dead serious. That's all you can do. If you have very strict parents and they're like, you cannot be an artist, be like, okay, go to school, eat their food, let them pay the bills, and as soon as you're of age and you are independent, then do whatever you want to do. Guess who did that? This girl right here. Absolutely, 100% did that. I felt like that meme, the gif of New York sitting on the bed from Flavor of Love.
Yep.
That was me, just waiting. I kept my head down, then I got out.
So when college didn't go as planned, and I made peace with that, and I moved on with my life, I was working similar to you. I was working retail, I was working as a server. I was just trying to like busy myself and figure out what I was gonna do, because I knew I was smart. I knew that I was always that girl that had good grades. But just like being good at something wasn't enough to pursue it full time. Like I really struggled with, all right, what is a hobby versus what is a career? And then that kind of got me into hair, and I was like, all right, I'm going to be a celebrity stylist. That was my next little benchmark. The curveball there was that I went to cosmetology school. I think it varies state by state. In the state that I was in, it required 1,200 hours, I want to say. So I think that equates to maybe almost a year of schooling. It's been so long now. But I was somebody growing up, and all my life, I just kind of like naturally got it. And so what happened was when I went to cosmetology school and I just wasn't naturally getting it, I didn't cope very well. I didn't realize that I didn't actually have the growth mindset that I thought I did. I had a fixed mindset. I was used to being good at things right away, and it was a big blow to the ego when things didn't click for me. So I just never mastered color. Like that light bulb never went off. I wasn't able to customize and do all the things that you need to do to be a phenomenal hair colorist. And so then I realized that your bread and butter when it comes to your clientele are usually the clients that are coming in for like the regular like trims and the bang cuts and the back to school kids. You don't really get a lot of clients like you see on TV that are doing those big, outlandish, transformative styles and cuts, especially when, like me at the time, you're in Wichita, Kansas. Like that is just not the location for those big trendy things. And so then I had to go, okay, big celebrity stylist, like, you know, what does that trajectory really look like? You are a single mother, you don't have the family support to go to these big cities like LA or New York where you would maybe have that clientele. Building a clientele takes time. It doesn't just fall into your lap. Like, you know, you go to the barbershop, nobody's sitting in the chair of the new guy. So yeah, that would probably be the second big curveball I had, was realizing that nope, okay, celebrity stylist, that might not be it either.
Put a pin in this. I did not know you were in Wichita, Kansas ever.
Wow.
Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah.
Never once did that come up in our conversations.
Oh, well, I left Germany when I found out I was pregnant, because growing up on a military base is very much a small town kind of feel. And I didn't get pregnant in high school, but I mean, I basically got pregnant as soon as high school ended. And I didn't want everyone in my business. I was still coping because, you know, I did not plan to become a mother that young. And I just needed the space and time to process that away from everybody that knew me as the straight A, goody two shoes, teacher's pet kid, because there was a lot of, you know, whispering and, oh my God, how did that happen? You know, who's the daddy? And I just had to get away from all of that. And so I went to Wichita, Kansas, where my older sister was. She was in the military, stationed at McConnell Air Force Base, and I went to live with her.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you ever find me in Kansas, Idaho, any of them places over there, I'm harboring a deep, dark secret, and I don't want people to find out.
Yep.
That's me.
Yep.
So I love how right now we're going through our like life timelines and like telling the curveballs along the way, because like that was your job that didn't work out, and then the same with me. When I finally went back to UConn and graduated, got the marketing degree, I got a corporate marketing job that was based in Massachusetts. So I moved to Massachusetts, got my own apartment for the first time. Like wow, like I had my car. driving to work every day, stopping to get Dunkin' Donuts. I knew my Dunkin' order. I was like a mini grown-up. It was kind of crazy in my early 20s. But the curveball there was I was miserable. So I thought, oh, I'm miserable under the thumb of my parents because they're like kind of strict when it comes to academia. But here I am miserable, stuck in the monotony of corporate. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? I thought this was the freedom that we were all searching for. Independent, literally live alone. You have money, a bi-weekly direct deposit. I think the entry-level salary was $51,000, which is a lot for a 22-year-old, I think. 22-year-old. And so I was like, oh, I've made it. I'm good. I was no happier because I'm like, this is still corporate. I'm still, my personality is still in a box, literally and figuratively, like literally because it was a cubicle. And I remember, I just didn't see that coming. I didn't see the curveball of you're going to be unhappy even when you get your independence.
Right.
So I was like, dang it, when does the happiness start?
Yeah.
So in being still aware of the child in me, I was like, I loved performing and I always will. So my friend that I made at the time at that job, who I'm still friends with, she sent me a Groupon for an acting class. And she's just like, hey, I know like you're looking for fun things to do after work. I found this in Boston.
That's a very thoughtful gift.
Yeah. So I signed up and I did it, and that's where I met that boy, the one I went to Denver with.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, whole other story. But yeah, and I just had like the best time at that acting class. And that's where I felt joy. And I think because there's so many years where like the joy was missing, I was like, okay, I think there's something to this. Yes, I have a real job, but I have been unhappy this entire time, but I finally find some joy at this acting class after work. Something is wrong here. I think the ratio should be flipped. You know what I mean? I feel like you should be happy most of the time and then sad some of the times. So I'm like, the ratio was just wrong here. And then that studio had an open call for a Dunkin' Donuts commercial because that's where Dunkin' is based in Massachusetts, and I booked that, my first national commercial before I even quit corporate and moved to New York. So that was a sign in itself too. Then I was applying to more fun-sounding jobs, and I got the job at NBC, and then I moved to Manhattan with like $3 in a dream. Like,
wow.
Yeah, and because I knew I would get pushed back at home, that's when I remembered, I'm like, oh, you're an adult. Like you have your own health insurance, you're in your 20s, you have your own money, you're paying off your student loans by yourself. So yes, you can have a healthy fear of your parents and of their judgment, but if you are an actual responsible adult, you can technically do whatever you want to do. So I didn't want my decision to move to New York to be sullied by their disapproval. So I made sure to secretly go interview in Manhattan, then drove back to Boston, minded my business, got the offer, accepted the offer, then told my parents. So, curveball number 2.
Yeah. I had always wanted to get signed for as long as I can remember. It was part of my dream of I'm just gonna go get discovered, I'm gonna be shopping one day, I'm gonna crash into carts with somebody and they're gonna go, oh my God, wait, you're so beautiful. Like I had it mapped out how it was gonna happen. And while I did find my way into modeling, it wasn't at all in the way that I thought I was gonna get there. I was never a Victoria's Secret angel. I felt like my look just wasn't what they were looking for. Everybody had the center part, you know, like the big beach waves. I did not get into America's Next Top Model, which ended up being a blessing in disguise later. Like all the horror stories that came out about it years later, I'm like, wow, my mental health, I don't know if it would have been able to withstand everything that comes with that and just, you know, that world of reality TV, which I know now I don't have any desire to be a part of, but I was still able to come into modeling, and I'm so grateful that for me it happened at a later age, because I would have been a wreck if I would have gotten what I wanted when I thought I wanted it. I just wasn't ready for the things that I was asking the world for, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally get that, especially with the modeling thing. I have not felt great in my body till my 30s. So at like 18 and stuff, like I tried out for a top model at 18. I came to the city. I made it past one round, aka there was a bunch of us like lined up like cattle in a room, and then they called out our names, our numbers on our badges, and then they're like, if we called your name, step forward, and then everyone who didn't get called was told to leave.
Yep.
And then I was told to leave after that.
Oh.
So I made it past the one round, the one round. But yeah, I didn't know anything about. Also, this was 18, so coming from like this white town where you're still getting used to your hair in braids and like having all black friends now, and like then my body, because like with the white girlfriends, like they wasn't built the way a lot of black people were built, and then so you're confused about like, so what body shape should I even have? Like all the young girl insecure thoughts that I had no business being around models at all. So I'm like, you know what, this is great. And what's funny is I got food afterwards, and then I ran into Yaya DaCosta. Like literally in Harlem. It was a vegan.
A very New York encounter.
Yes, it was like a vegan Jamaican restaurant. And I was like, wait, girl, literally, we took a picture and everything. If I can find it, I'll throw it up on the screen. But I was like, what are the odds? Literally the day you come to the city to try out for top model, you run into a top model. So bizarre, but I don't know.
Did you ask her any questions?
I don't think so. I don't remember.
I would have been scared.
Yeah, because I think it was just, this was before I worked at NBC and before I met celebrities like and saw people normally, like regularly, that is. So I think I was like still like, didn't know how to like talk to someone because they're just a normal person.
Yeah.
But I was just green, but same.
Yes.
Modeling that young.
Speaking of, I think when you're flocking to big cities like that, and you are so just green and naive and you're wearing your heart on your sleeve, you have to keep your head on a swivel, because you're also going to have people around you that are just snakes, and they don't have your best interest at heart, and they know how excited and full of hope you are, and their intentions just aren't pure. I'm almost embarrassed now. Like I try not to, I don't want to still carry the shame with me today, because I'm like, girl, you're in your mid-30s, like it happened in the past, you learned from it, let it go. I'm trying to reframe it as you're supposed to feel cringy about things that you did back in the day, and those feelings are a sign of how far you've come. You can look at that and recognize that behavior, that situation wasn't good, which in actuality is a good thing. But it still kind of gives me the ick when I'm like, oh, how could I have
You didn't know, but your brain literally wasn't fully formed.
Part of me thinks though that I was always this mature, and that is delulu. But I went to New York, and I had met this casting director, and I thought he was legit because I saw him at a casting sitting behind a desk. So of course he's a casting director. And he had caught wind that I was looking to rent a new room, which is just a very common thing if you're in New York or LA or whatever, and then especially within our industry. And he was like, oh yeah, I have a space. And I don't know, I guess I just kind of trusted him because he was a casting director. And I saw him in a casting director setting. The first red flag was on the day that I was set to come and get the keys from him, and he knew this because we planned it, we made arrangements. He was out at the club, and I'm like, why would you not be home? Like I was coming in on the China bus, it was like super late, he okayed that. And I'm like, why wouldn't you tell me that this time doesn't work? So I'm getting in, I'm exhausted, I have this whole suitcase behind me, and I have to meet you at the club. And then you're like, oh, well, do you want to just stay here? Like until he's ready to go home. And I'm like, no, I just came off the China bus. I'm tired, I'm exhausted. I want to see this room that I'm paying you $800 for. So that was red flag number one. The second thing that happened was this man blew up the bathroom, something serious. And the plumbing was just destroyed after that. Like I don't know, like he was just like, don't go in there, don't lift it up. Like I don't know what demons he unleashed, but the bathroom was out of commission for like days, and he was like, oh, I know the neighbors upstairs. And I'm like, but I'm paying you $800 a month, and there's only one bathroom here, so you need to use that money or some of that money and get this bathroom service. Like why am I paying for a place that doesn't have a usable bathroom, and now I need to knock on the neighbors. I don't know the neighbors upstairs. I'm glad you do, but I don't know them. That's a completely different apartment. And then over time I realized, I'm like, he hasn't actually went into work for a long time. He's kind of just out till 4 a.m. every night doing drugs, drinking. Like I literally would wake up, come out into the living room, our shared space, and you know the rules, like keep the shared spaces clean, right? Like if you want to be a slob in your bedroom, that's fine. And I kid you not, it was like 20 like beer cans, and just, it was gross. So at that point I realized, A, he's not who he said he is, or he lost his job, he's not pursuing a new job, and there's no urgency to, because I'm helping him cover so much rent. Like he just keeps tenants like me in rotation, and we are what are funding his lifestyle in New York essentially. I'm replaceable. I'm not a friend. I'm just helping him meet a need. Yeah.
So what did you do for a living after that?
What did I do? I mean, I was still modeling and pursuing my jobs, and with my agency, and my jobs were far and few in between. So,
oh no, I meant living, not for a living.
Oh,
like how long did you stay?
So the other tenants, it was this young couple that was staying with him, and we kind of had heart-to-hearts about his shadiness, and we made a pact that we were going to move out and find a place together, and we weren't going to pay him that last month's rent because we didn't have an official contract. He was shady. I don't know if he even was allowed to legally rent out to us. And then we found a place. I think you and Ari came to that place then, where I was staying with that couple.
Ridgewood?
Yeah. That's where we...
I've known you for a long time.
Girl, yeah.
And we keep discovering. You was around for that.
Listen, had my air mattress and everything. It's a struggle.
So I had a roommate. I was fortunate though that in Harlem I had a 2-bedroom apartment, but I was the only one on the lease because somebody I met at NBC when I was working there had a friend moving to the city, and so me and her friend were gonna get the place together, but the friend had bad credit and everyone in her family had bad credit apparently, so she couldn't have a co-signer. So my parents were like, okay, well, she can live with you, but we don't feel comfortable with her on your lease because she didn't earn it to be on the lease, and I don't want her to screw you over and mess up your credit too, so it's your apartment and she just pays you. And I was like, okay, so my parents are good.
Right, I'm like, they...
Yep. So I had my own 2-bedroom apartment. It was pretty epic. So this girl lived with me, but then she got another job, moved out. So then it was up to me to like find another roommate. So there was a very green girl coming from, I think, Oregon, in her 20s, blonde, like innocent, like pretty, she was nice. But after a while, it became untenable because she was dirty. Like I'm talking the smoothies she'd make every day. She wouldn't even like, you don't have to do the dishes every single day, especially if you're super busy, but at least rinse it out.
Because it hardens.
And we had fruit flies coming.
Oh.
And I was like, see, I can't live like this. Then she would have different guys over all the time. And then there was one recurring guy who was rude and wouldn't even say hi to me. But I was like, it's my house. Like, you're walking around in your boxers in my apartment and just as if I'm not there, just walk right by me. Like, hello. I didn't like how that felt in my own apartment. And then the last straw, after a bunch of different like little annoyances, was I went to Connecticut for the weekend to see my family. And I get a call at like 3 a.m. and she was like, I've been robbed. And I was like, oh snap, are you all right? You in the hospital? Like, did they stab you? Like, I was like, oh, like what? And then she was like, no. And then she told me the real story, which was, so I was at the bar, well, she's always at the bar. She just literally left her purse on the chair, like by the front of the bar. And then she went in the back by the pool table. And by the time she went back to the front, her purse was gone. That's very different than I've been robbed.
Yes.
Right? You picture something very different when someone says, I've been robbed, you know? So I was like, well, that sucks, because it was all preventable because she's just irresponsible and she drinks too much and she parties too much. So I didn't care. Also, why are you calling me?
Because this is the setup for why she's not about to pay rent.
I thought so, but I was also, I was like, okay, well, you're safe and you weren't robbed and you somehow have access back into the apartment, so I guess your keys were in your pocket. I don't know how that worked out, but you don't have your wallet. Maybe the wallet was taken out of the bag or something. Whatever it was, she didn't have money. But she was fine. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to sleep since it's 3 a.m. Guess what she said? So I think this was Friday, maybe Friday night. So she still had Saturday and Sunday left of the weekend. And I was like, there's food in the fridge. There's streaming services on the TV. And the apartment is safe and clean. So just veg out on the couch. I don't know what to tell you. She literally was like, do you have any money laying around the house? Like rainy day fund or something, or like mattress money? And I was like, one, no. Two, why? So it's the weekend, so I can go out.
What?
Yeah, because, I'm not from here, and, like, I can't get money Western Unioned to me till Monday, and, like, I have a local bank that isn't here. So my parents would have to send them, and I was like, okay, well, you don't know how to just sit down on a Saturday for free? So I was like, it just became a boundaries issue at this point, because I'm like, I'm not your older sister, I'm not your cousin, I'm not your auntie, you are a tenant. Pay me every month on the 1st. That's it. And if you could clean up after yourself, that'd be great too.
Right.
But you get yourself into a pickle, and then I'm supposed to come to your rescue and give you my rainy day fund?
The audacity to come out of her mouth and even ask. It almost makes me think that she went snooping a little bit first, and then when she couldn't find nothing, let me just ask her where her rainy day fund at, And
I'm glad I don't have one. I do not keep cash in my house. So whoever's thinking about robbing me, ain't nothing there.
You sharing that story though reminds me, because so much of this is in the past, and I don't linger on it anymore, and so not until we talk about these things am I like, oh yeah.
You're like, and another thing.
It did happen, but yeah, what really made me and the roommates move out was I was out of town. I went back home to visit my family who was in Virginia at the time, and I get a text that says, yeah, somebody broke in. And I'm like all my stuff is back there. I was just home for the weekend. And he lived in what is it called? Like a railway apartment?
Railroad.
Okay,
just walk
yeah.
through every
So
room,
if you get access in one way, you got access to everything. And because he was always out, and because he was irresponsible and not sober, if the story was even true in terms of how it happened, but the window was open and it was a very accessible rooftop where you could just kind of come straight in. He always went out the window to smoke, to drink, whatever. So the anxiety of knowing that I'm in Virginia, I'm completely helpless, I have to wait until I get back to New York to see what was taken, what damage was done. Somebody broke into the apartment because of his carelessness, because he wasn't closing the windows, because he wasn't locking the door. And that was then what made us move out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the robbing story. I was like, wait, I got robbed too.
Wait, so what was missing?
Nothing. I had nothing. My phone was with me, my iPad was with me. I was pretty much living out of a suitcase, and they didn't care enough about my clothes or shoes. So there wasn't much for them to take, but that does not diminish the violation that you feel when you see your stuff just laid out on the bed and somebody's been rummaging through it. But that was the only time in my life I'm like, thank you, God. Because I had nothing. I had nothing for them to take, and if I had more things of value, I would have been hurting a little bit more. But that, you can only see so many red flags before you're like, all right.
Exactly. But yeah, so the living situation, when you're thrown a curveball in where you live, it's so annoying because it's such a big part of your life. It's the biggest amount of money you spend monthly, whether it's rent or mortgage. It's a lot of money. So if you don't feel safe, if you have to move, if you're living with someone who's just horrible, when the call is coming from inside the house, there is no worse feeling than it's I can't escape. This is supposed to be my peace. It's supposed to be my safe space. And here I'm living with people or someone who just disturbs my peace on a daily basis. It's horrible. So me with that girl, I've had to get rid of roommates before. But the first time it happens, you get really nervous and scared because you're like, I'm young, I don't have money to cover this whole place. And then you're like, when am I gonna get someone else in the room? Is someone gonna be better or worse than this person? But your peace is important. I never had an issue finding roommates because New York City. but yeah, you're nervous. You're like, I can't afford this on my own. But it was to the point where when it gets so bad, you're like, I would rather tank my credit and go into debt to cover something I can't afford than to live with someone that's horrendous. That's how much it would have an effect on your mental health if you hate every single day. So you need to have boundaries there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And just realize that everybody at the end of the day isn't your friend. You know, it's okay to cut your losses and move on.
Have you ever had a curveball when it comes to friends? Like somebody acts like so crazy or egregious and you just have to put your foot down?
Yeah, like I don't know. When I first moved to New York, I was very much like a party girl. And some friends you have throughout all seasons, you can bring them to your parents and they can mingle with your other friends and you can go out with them too, but also have heart-to-hearts. And then other friends only work in certain batches. My party friends, I was trying to make my all-around friends.
Oof.
And
that's the one category of friend you can't make your all-around friend.
yeah, I know that now. But stuff started like not adding up. I felt like I was being put in situations where I am somehow all of a sudden paying for things. My Metro card was getting stolen. My money out of my pocket was getting stolen, but like we're friends. So if I just have $20 in my pocket and we're all crashing here after a wild night of partying, this should be a safe place to like leave my jacket. You know, I shouldn't have to like check my stuff like that because we're all friends. But they were my party friends, and they weren't my heart-to-heart, tell-all, they're not here today friends. So, you know, hard lesson, but...
Were you left with zero friends at one point and then had to rebuild them in the way that you knew was in line with your life?
I think at one point I got to the place where I was like, all right, I maybe have one friend left in this city. Work isn't picking up the way that I want it to. My friendships are not sustainable. The decisions that I'm making are affecting my health. I really had to question if New York was the place for me, if this industry was the place for me, and take a hard inventory of what situations I was putting myself in and how they were either helping or hindering what I said the goals were when I moved there. Because I got distracted. I got caught up in a lot of... You know, it's exciting at first, the fashion parties and the free drinks and the access and all the things.
And the people you see on TV, but you see them in real life now?
Yeah, all of it is very exciting. And if I would have gotten those things and had that access at 18, I can only imagine how much worse it would have been for me, considering how bad it was when I had that access in my early 20s. I just barely got out of some of those situations. I'm just grateful for the time that has passed, that I have survived some of the experiences that occurred, so that I can even be here now and say, oh my gosh, thank you that didn't work. Thank you that you showed me who those people really are. Thank you that living situation proved itself to not be the best place for me. Yeah, it could have gone a completely different way. I don't know.
Sometimes I do feel like when you leave a situation unscathed, doesn't it feel like there's a little angel just like...
Girl, I have a couple of guardian angels.
I've had so many situations where it's just like, oh, if this just happened, it would have been a wrap. So many different avenues, but I don't know. I'm like, am I blessed and highly favored?
Absolutely, amen.
I think I am.
Amen, yeah.
Like, listen, we weren't even like church-going folk, but so many things have happened in my life that I'm like, all right, I know you up there. Something happening now, because I am blessed. But yeah, curveballs when it comes to friends and releasing friends. Like, I didn't know. Once you pop, the fun don't stop. So for me, I just want to say it because it rhymed. Doesn't even really make sense. But like the shedding of the friends, like we talked about this before, like when you it's hard to make friends as an adult.
Yeah.
So in my brain, I'm thinking if I make adult friends, they're gonna like be real and grounded and forever friends because we're grown-ups now. So it's like, of course, like it's not like high school where it's a popularity contest and you're just friends with people for the wrong reasons, but like you're a grown-up, you're a fully functioning adult, and then you're friends. So it's like, oh, we in this. I lost about 3 good friends.
In the same time span?
I think in the same, yeah, maybe 1 per year or something. I don't know. Like, I think once I saw the true colors of one of them, it made me look at everyone in a different lens. And I was like, wait, I have the same way that a lot of girls date the same guy over and over again and never learn their lesson. I was making the same friend over and over again.
What kind of friend were you seeking?
I felt like I gravitated towards like, I wouldn't say loners, but like hyper independent, kind of closed off women.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
Maybe I saw a reflection of myself because of that whole story I told of how I wasn't supported in my formative years, like, or those important years where you're forming your identity. And so I just felt like I was on an island by myself. So I think I saw that in other women, and then I gravitated towards that. I'm like, you're me. And then like, but that type of person who is still closed off and hasn't done the work is not a good friend because they're just still looking out for themselves only and like their best interest, and they don't have the capacity to open up their hearts and their minds and actually check in on you and like really just have the volley of reciprocity. And so after a while I just felt like used. Or just like a prop. I don't know. I can't really explain it, but I stopped reaching out to. I'm thinking literally, there's 3 people that come to mind, top of my mind, who I was like, if I stop reaching out and if I stop sharing, if I stop feeding this, what will happen? And it's a wrap. So because I had an inkling for a little bit, and I'm like, it's gone. But it was a curveball to me because I've been in New York City for so long, over 12 years. And most people don't stay that long because it's such a transient city, especially if you come here for any type of art. So people like marry off and they move back home where they came from or whatever. It's like you get your reps in and then you be out. But I'm still here. So a lot of people left, so one by one. So it was a curveball losing these women, even though they didn't add too much value to me, because I felt like way more alone than I did previously. And I was like, wait. Everyone's gone. There's millions of people in this city, but like none of them are my people. And that was like a weird feeling. But how did I deal with that? I just built a new community.
Were you able to lean into your siblings at all during that time?
Yes and no. Like my brother, he's busy. He's a doctor. He has 12-hour shifts. He's in a different time zone. My sister has 2 babies. You know what it's like with babies running around and like you're tired or whatever. Like it's just hard to hold space for other people. When you literally have a full busy life. So luckily I lean into text a lot, not the Bible, but do that if you want to. I am blessed and highly favored. We did go over this, but I read a lot of nonfiction that helps me with like mental health stuff and just different perspectives on things. So I feel fine now, but that really sucked. Like when you're like, dang, I feel like these were my best friends and now they're gone. Like you weren't my best friend. I had no one else to hang out with and you were there. And so we would just hang out with each other.
But your bounce back game is strong. Like, you feel your feels, you take a second, and then you usually make a list of some sort of the new goals moving forward, and then you come back. And I've witnessed that.
That's very true. I have lamented a few times about things, and you're like, you'll be all right, sweetie. Auntie voice.
I always, for me, for so long, the goal was always, all right, how do I create the stability in New York so that I can be here and thriving with my daughter? I can be in the survival mode for as long as need be, but I don't want to be out here in survival mode with my daughter. I need to just be able to provide more stability for her. And before New York, the goal was LA, and then my aesthetic just didn't do well in LA, and I was told to give New York a try, which worked out in hindsight because I had more family in the East Coast. I don't know what this fascination was with moving away and with moving to a big city, but I just felt like I wanted to make it. I had something to prove. The stakes were even higher, and if I could do this so far removed from like my hometown, then I can come back and like be the girl that made it. You know, we've all seen like those movies. One of the biggest changes in my life now is that like I don't really want that anymore. So I'm okay with the curveball of not living in New York. I didn't ever think that I would be in the DMV, especially not long term, but my husband and I are looking for a house, and I'm excited about that. And you know, the reality is like my daughter hates New York. My husband's work requires him to be here, so New York really would no longer even be a viable option for us. I've made peace with that.
See, everything happens how it's supposed to happen, which is why in the rapid fire, when you said, when life gives you lemons, I did complete the sentence with, you make lemonade.
You do make lemonade, yeah.
It is what it is. You gotta roll with the punches.
The experiences that you have to go through that yield the lessons are hard, and they're uncomfortable, and they're cringy. But if you are able to learn something from it so that you do not repeat the same mistakes, that is kind of like the pot of gold at the end of the tunnel, you know, so to speak. The catch is learning.
Wait.
What?
Light at the end of the tunnel, pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
The pot. Oh, what did I say?
You can't mix both. The rainbow ends with the pot of gold. The tunnel has a light. You sure did combine it.
But the sentiments are the same.
It is, but I just couldn't let it slide. I'm like, you can't mess up. You can't mess that up.
There's a pot of gold, a light shining pot of gold at the end of the tunnel rainbow, is what I'm trying to say. The trick is to learn the first time so that hopefully you don't have to go through these uncomfortable situations or these repetitive relationships that are causing you like heartbreak and heartache or near-death experiences or whatever. Like, just if we could just learn the first time. I wasn't built that way though. I was hard-headed.
Yeah, I think I was only hard-headed when it came to like romance, but then after the universe gave me the same lesson like 3 times, it's like, girl, you gonna get this or not? I'm like, you right, that's the same, you right. But everything else, I think it takes one very jarring incident, and I'm like, okay, yeah, no, that's a no for me. And then that shapes you, and then it pushes you in different directions. Like, this door closes, this one opens, and like you just figure it out. And I think big picture when it comes to curveballs is knowing all the things that have happened to you, like sit and think of like what have been the big curveballs in my life, then think about other people, because a lot of us have main character syndrome. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I'm so busy, oh, life is so crazy, oh, this happened to me. That, some version of that has happened to every single person you've ever met. Mm-hmm. And if you just keep that in the back of your mind, you will be so much lighter and happier and not let things bother you so much, because you never know what other people are going through.
Right. I think it also motivates like your behavior moving forward. If you went through this, if you know so many other people that went through this, then what can you do for the newbies coming in behind you so that they don't have these harrowing experiences, so that they can step into the industry and not have to go what you went through? I think sometimes those of us that have suffered at the hands of like predators or just like, you know, snaky people that saw how green we were and didn't have our best intentions in mind, we wear that pain and trauma like a badge of honor. And it's like, well, if I had to suffer, then that's just what comes with the territory. You got to go through the same crap I did. And it's like, no, that's trauma. We can break the cycle. Part of the reason that I'm always as transparent about, you know, the good and the bad things that happened in my just pursuit of modeling is so that it doesn't happen to other people. And luckily, the industry is shifting. People are getting called out more for behavior that is no longer acceptable. We are slowly but surely becoming more inclusive as an industry. There are still problems, not sugarcoating that. But I always want to hold the door open for people behind me. I'm always going to be like, yeah, ask me anything about an agent, a client, or whatever, a photographer. If they were a creep and did not present themselves well, like, I will always share that information.
Same. I am definitely hardcore into my mentor bag. Like, I was an official mentor through a program, and I had a mentee. She was 21. I think. And yeah, we worked together for several weeks, and then I meet younger people all the time. My acting class has varying ages, so I talk to some people there. People DM me and ask me questions, and I'm like, oh, I love paying it forward because people don't tell you things. I want to know things about every facet of life, and I'm happy to do that. Not everyone needs to suffer. Some people can just thrive.
We want to hear from you. What plot twist occurred in your life and how did you overcome it?
Yes, let us know in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe and follow us on Instagram and on TikTok. And be sure to tune in to next week's episode. Let's talk about it. A solo sit down with me about dating recovery 101.